Alright guys, welcome back to Valorant News. With the last chance qualifier just a few days away, NRG's coach Chet seems to believe that Sentinels are a nailed-on thing to win this last chance qualifier, potentially based on some scrims they had very recently. Sentinels seemingly looking very good, but also Boostio from Evil Geniuses making quite the statement about Chinese Valorant, saying they will never catch up to North America as far as he's concerned, despite the fact that CanCan continues to dominate and Edward Gaming looking increasingly good in that Chinese qualifier. Very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Thought this was nice as well for Disguised and Disguised Toast himself, right? Because DSG, they got a win. Can you believe it? Their Game Changers team comes through and they went through their group without too much difficulty. This GSL style groups got through 2-1 for breakthrough and that they qualified for tomorrow's. It's been so long I forgot what it was like to tweet a Valorant win, so I thought that was quite nice to see. Also confirmed the broadcast talent for the Americas LCQ, the usual suspects, but all just thought it was nice. Like whenever Sean Gares is there, I think that's a great addition, to be honest. And then you've got three special guests. babybay, Vanity, and Valin are bringing it up from, kind of the player perspective. Those guys' seasons, of course, over at this point. And as Zekan says, need babybay, Vanity, and Valin to commentate on our match, which would be very entertaining, and it's going to be a big one, right? July the 16th, 100 Thieves, Sentinels. We know the drill at this point. It's going to be an absolute masterclass. But before we get there, we've got to discuss this from Boostio. This is one of those comments that you look back on in a couple of years and you think, wow, that aged incredibly poorly. Maybe it won't. Maybe he's bang on the money here. But this is quite the statement. So Boostio, of course, did a great job at the Masters Tokyo event. They made a phenomenal run all the way to the grand finals. Just fell short to Fnatic, but I feel like anyone would have done so. But he makes a bold statement on China will never be better than NA for one in Valorant. So he makes this on this Hotline League podcast, talking about League of Legends, and he made a pretty good account of himself. But this is quite the statement.
Boostio, will you still be putting in the hours then?
China will never be better than NA, for one, in Valorant.
Ooh.
Oh my god.
No.
Let's go.
China or, I think some Korean teams can do it. But the reason I say this is because I think for League, like, it's back to my first point, is that I don't think these players have been playing it, like, since the game came out, they haven't been playing enough in practice. When all these Korean players have been playing for 10 years, a shit ton of scrims, and they haven't done it.
Travis and I
get to clip this again.
It's happening again. History repeats
I
itself.
get to clip this.
But
find the double lift take, Travis. Play them back to back.
But
Boostio.
Valorant, what's up?
Boostio, you have just made me so much money a couple years from now, and I really appreciate it. You don't know this, but I have a video from State of the League back in 2011 when Doublelift said, "Oh yeah, there's no way the Korean teams are ever to catch up to EU and NA," and I said, like, why do you think that? Isn't that bold? He's like, no, because we've just been playing for longer. Like, their server's just coming on now. Like, they can't catch up. We're way ahead. And it just aged so fucking poorly. And that clip does so much for me. And so I just appreciate you so much giving me the Valorant version. That is so good.
No, but my version's 100% fact. I promise you. Because we will actually grind. We will make sure these Chinese teams will never be close to us. Only the Chinese. I think the Korean teams could do damage. I think any of the Asian teams could do damage, but China's 3 years behind. And, if we play enough, they will not be... I don't think they'll be close to us.
I've never been more invested in the future of Valorant than I am right now.
I respect it. I come in here, flame League pros for not practicing enough, and then saying you're going to stuff China no matter what happens.
No, we will.
That is a hell of a take. I love it.
So I thought it was kind of funny, right, that Travis Gafford says, look, people have said this in the past and there's been similar statements echoed in previous iterations several years ago, and it has tended to come back to bite them. Now, he does say that the Korean teams, you reckon, can be good and can improve, but China is, in his opinion, 3 years behind. I'm not necessarily sure that's the case, really. Look at what Edward Gaming are currently doing, and even I'm not sure that argument really means that much anyway, because the game changes so quickly in Valorant that just because they might be behind some of the meta in the development curve doesn't mean they can't catch up quite quickly with all the changes that occur in this game. But yeah, he reckons that they're for several years behind development because the game is only just launching there, and if American teams and other teams EMEA play enough, they won't be able to catch up effectively, which is, look, this is one of those statements that feels like it's going to come back to bite him, right? every time something like this happens, and it might not happen immediately, but I know that people will think, well, let's say EG go to Champions in LA and they play Edward Gaming or they play another team from China. There's going to be a little bit of extra motivation for that team to try and take these guys down to prove that, like, look, we are here to play, and the Chinese league, I'm sure, will be a threat at some point. We already know Edward Gaming put up a great fight individually. They came top 6 at Masters Tokyo. They could potentially have gone even further than that. And you would imagine that over time, teams are only going to continue to get a little bit better, and the other teams are going to be able to compete a little bit more. I will say, though, like last night, Kang again was just on smoke, right? They were playing this Billy Gaming team. Look at this. I'm kind of surprised in some respects why we don't see more clips like this. I know that Kang is just built different, obviously. But, I mean, look at this with the Marshall. The Marshall, we all know, is so good on these, like, second rounds after a pistol because they've got no armor and you can just mow them down. I mean, look at, I will just play this again here. So he gets 1, 2, 3, misses the 4th shot initially, but he closes out with a 5th, so gets the 4K easily. And then I thought was really nice here about his teamwork is that they find out where the final player is. Smoggy calls him out and just decides deliberately not to get the kill so that Kang could come through the back and try and get the ace. I mean, at this point, they are just taking the mick, right? They're up 2-0 here on the split to close out the series, and he gets the final kill as well. So I thought that was just kind of good teamwork for the boys to give Kang the ace there, and it helps him bump his numbers up even more. Pearl was 13-3, Bind was 13, actually have a look at this, Bind was 13-10, and then Split was 13-4 in the end, and Kang dropped, what, 65 kills, 308 ACS over the 3 maps. So, you know, it's just another standard performance of him, right? And he is arguably the best operator player in the world. I mean, some of the players that you see him make, some of the shots you see him hit, and the amount of kills he gets with the operator compared to everybody else on the planet is pretty insane. And while he is the best player in that region, it's not like his teammates are bad either. A very solid team they're forming over there. And look, they've been dominating this Chinese qualifier so far. But does that mean that these other teams won't be able to catch up and get to that level at some point? No. How far can Edward Gaming go? Because, you know, over time, these other teams, the Tylus, FPXs, BLG and all this, right, they will improve. And as a result, Edward Gaming will be able to play against those better teams, right? A lot of the time, you tend to find that the ceiling of teams is implied by how good their practice can be. And Edward, once they're over for Champions, right, because they've of course officially qualified now in LA, they'll be able to play against some of the best American teams, get even better as a result of things, play against the best teams of the world, right? Like, that helps them improve, and that'll help the other teams in the region improve when they practice against them. So, yeah, I don't really buy the idea here for Boostio that these guys are going to be perennially behind. It feels like at some point they're going to be able to catch up and be a very competitive region, as some of their players, to be honest, already are. But we'll see. Maybe Boostio's actually got a point on this one, but it just feels like one of those statements that they're going to lose to a Chinese team at Champions or something, and then he's going to have to mince his words at least a little bit. Today, though, actually just, I believe, began as of recording this right now, Tylee versus FPX, the final best-of-5 series that determined which team goes to Champions. So we know that BLG and Edward have qualified. One of these two teams qualifies as well, and they'll be off to LA relatively shortly as well. I thought this is pretty funny from comment. Did bro watch Masters Tokyo? China already have the best opera in the world. LA's best opera is still a wardell. It's obviously, you know, a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I thought it was pretty funny. Wanted to also mention, though, of course, the big match, the match of the century. Sentinels versus 100 Thieves in a couple of days' time. They're getting their rosters ready to go, but who's looking good? 100 Thieves have been struggling a little bit lately, and Sentinels on paper, I mean, on paper, they should have been one of the best teams in the Americas, full stop. They weren't. They made the change. Dephh goes out, Marved comes in, and they've apparently been putting way more time in than anybody else has. Doesn't mean that it can't go wrong for them. The bracket for them is far from straightforward. They play 100 Thieves. If they win that, they play Cloud9. So, you know, they might have to go through losers if they want to win it. And that first series against 100 Thieves is, let's not forget, single elimination. And, you know, I thought this is pretty funny from Boaster. We are taking a day off to watch, he says. So it's such a big matchup that, you know, even Fnatic, the reigning champions and the favourites for the World Championship, are going to take a couple of hours off to make sure they watch this one. Would be pretty funny if they do. This, though, was the tweet here from Chet, coach of NRG, that I thought was interesting, because usually they only will tweet this if they've played against them in scrims. This is how it tends to go, and we've seen this plenty of times before, where a team will play another team in scrims, they'll lose to them badly or something like that, and they'll say, oh, if that team doesn't win everything from now to the end of the year and simply remains undefeated forever, then I'll be shocked. So maybe, and it's quite possible this has occurred, because NRG, a lot of the other teams, let's say in challenges, their season is over. There aren't too many options to practice against, so it's very reasonable to expect that Sentinels and NRG have had, you know, some scrims over the last few days. And then Chet says, if Sen doesn't win LCQ, I will be shocked at Marved. So, of course, you know, joking around a bit about Marved because of the OpTic thing and they've got that prior relationship. Marved says NRG should win champs. I've never been so excited to spectate a match IRL, he says. So difficult to say there, but it is very possible that they've had a particularly good time in practice over the last couple of days. And as a result, they're looking, well, they're potentially the favourites, at least according to Chet there, to win that series. It is single elim though, it's not going to be easy, but this is babybay's predictions for the entire bracket, and he's got Sentinels taking down 100 Thieves, taking down Cloud9, taking down Furia, and then beating Cloud9 again in the grand final. So lots of optimism here. I haven't seen really anyone predict 100T, to be honest, to actually even win this series. So we'll see. Maybe they'll come up with a bit of a surprise, and if Sentinels lose, then, well, questions will be asked, and changes, I'm sure, will be made. But very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.